Before this video starts, I'd just like to make an announcement. I have the Liberal Tears mug for $14.99 on my website. It is the first link in the description if you want to go pick one up. Don't worry if it breaks when it comes to your house. I'll send you another one for free out of my pocket. I don't care. I want you to get your Liberal Tear mug. It comes in Liberal Tears white with the face, black with the face, white without the face, and black without the face. So pick whichever one you want, and it'll come to your door in about 3 to 5 days. So that should be epic. First link in the description. Thank you. Let's go on with the video.
Hello everyone! Hey, I'm just stopping by to remind you that liberals are insane! Social justice warriors are becoming more violent and triggered than ever before. Anyways, be sure to subscribe to KGP TV on YouTube and have a blessed day. Yeah, man!
Because there is no power that can affect anyone else's lives. That's the dynamic. That's usually where the color of one's skin is tied to racism itself. Why can't Black people be racist? Why can't Latinos be racist? It's the power, the shift of the dynamic. We've seen that change though, especially in recent times as we're starting to look at the dynamics of how we engage with one another when we're inside of a room. The conversations have changed from just the undoing the supremacy, the white supremacy, the institutional structures, and going back into just the differences of races of how we treat each other. Black and brown, the interactions between those two, Asian, all of those dynamics. So yes, I do agree with the initial definition, but I do recognize it's changing.
I fundamentally disagree with the basic definition, and I don't think it has anything to do with power. Power is a capacity. Racism is about a set of beliefs, and power is just the ability to enact those beliefs. So, in other words, you can have a racist who doesn't have the power to actually enact those beliefs, and that would be a less threatening racist, presumably, than a racist who actually has the power to use those beliefs. But, I mean, if you look at Zimbabwe, where white farmers have been thrown off their land, that's a pretty good example of Black racism. If you look at a situation like you said, I mean, first of all, if you look at there was a poll, Rasmussen poll in 2013, asking Americans who they believe is racist, and according to the Black community, a plurality of Blacks actually thought that Blacks were more racist than whites, according to the Rasmussen poll. 31% of Blacks said that Blacks were more racist than whites, 24% said whites were more racist than Blacks. So whether the definition or not has changed, the definition of racism should be that you believe that one race, or any race, because of its inherent skin color, or because of ethnicity, or because of, by dint of birth, that you are privileged beyond other races in terms of superiority. If you believe that under any circumstances, then that, by my lights, is the definition of racism. And anything else, I mean, if you want to give Black racism another name and say that it's not racism, it's just something else that's bad, then I suppose that it's some sort of linguistic difference. But the bottom line is it bad or is it good? And, you know, for my money, we might as well label it all racism because it's not exclusive to white folks.
Go ahead if you'd like to add. Charles, you look like you want to add something.
Yeah, you just mentioned Zimbabwe, right?
Mm-hmm.
I come from Zimbabwe, and I actually the white farmer issue in Zimbabwe, and I'm no supporter of Robert Mugabe by any measure. I mean, you can't. I mean, I'm not going to go and celebrate, you know, anything that has to do with Robert Mugabe. I mean, I've been opposed to him. I've been opposed to Robert Mugabe since 1987. But if you look at the white farmer situation and the fact and the question of racism,
before you continue, can I get you to hold the microphone?
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Is it like this? All right. Okay. Sorry about that. Sorry. I'm really lazy. I thought I was talking to myself in the room. And I have to remind myself, oh, there's an audience here that's hearing these thoughts. But no, I'm going to say this very quickly. Yeah, the whites were thrown off the land in Zimbabwe and so on and so on. And it was the stupidest thing that Mugabe could have ever done because blacks own the banks. It's really more complicated than a lot of people understood it. And it shouldn't have happened because you have to deal with history and you have to deal with the future, and you just can't like just change things in that manner, right? One. The quick thing is that as for racism, racism to me is always about advantage, purely. And I think that when there's no advantage at all, there's going to be very little racism. And so in the case of whenever you go to Africa, you'll find that actually the blacks come in completely rainbow colors themselves, and that they are can be equally as awful to each other as any white person could be awful to a black person. And so the question would be then to say something like, you know, what advantage is it when you hate another group of people? And often there has to be an advantage. Otherwise, you're not going to hate them. And this is what my position is.
Monique, you want to add anything?
I do. To me, the definition is not correct. What I've seen is racism, as I've experienced it at one point, was an emotion experience. Racism has become a commodity. It's a business. It's either one way for our political partisanship to pit one people against another, or it's one way to lift up another people against another. It's become a business. If we truly want to address racism, what would that be to some of the ne'er-do-wells that come into our communities? They'd have no reason to pillage and to go into the CVS pharmacy and burn it down. So to me, racism is less about the emotional experience. In 2015, it's become a business, and it's become a commodity, and it has become an excuse for intolerable behavior. The racism I experienced was very much emotion, but that's my definition of racism in 2015.
Would you like to respond at all, or shall we? Well, we're going to get into Baltimore here in just a couple of minutes. So let me start with Ben. Ben, the ACLU published a blog condemning broken windows policing. They pointed out the attempted enforcement of low-level crimes in Ferguson, jaywalking, Staten Island, selling loose cigarettes, Milwaukee, sleeping in a public park, all led to deaths of African-American males, Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Dontre Hamilton, and we can now add Freddie Gray to that list. Given the incidents of police action creating these violent confrontations, wouldn't it be better for race relations in America to abandon this kind of policing?
No, it wouldn't, because broken windows theory, the idea that was originally proposed by James Q. Wilson, the idea was that if you let low-level crime go, then high-level crime will begin to occur more frequently. And therefore you have to enforce, for example, turnstile jumpers was the example that James Q. Wilson originally used when he was talking about it in the city of New York. It's been tremendously effective in lowering rates of crime. If you want to avoid bad relationships between, for example, the black community and the cops, then lowering rates of crime would be the key to doing that. And if policing low-level crime is the way of lowering crime and preventing higher-level crime, then that's going to be the best thing. Forget the relations between cops and civilians. It's going to be the best thing for the civilians who are involved. I mean, the biggest threat to young black men in America today is young black men in America today. And statistically speaking, it is young black men who are killing young black men. The chances of you as a young black man being killed by the police, statistically speaking, are about 1 in 60,000 in the United States. The chances of any person in this room being killed by a bee attack are 1 in 56,000. So your chances. So the idea that that low-level policing of crime is what is causing this is not true. I mean, it's not even true in the cases that are being cited particularly. It's certainly not true with regard to Michael Brown. Michael Brown was shot because Michael Brown went for a cop's gun inside the cop's car. Michael Brown was shot because he charged a cop by witness testimony, including the witness testimony of black witnesses. Eric Garner died because police were enforcing a law that, by the way, I think is a stupid law, but he died because he was resisting arrest and because the cops tried to put on him a submission hold, which is not a justification of excessive force, which I think there was in that case. The problem is excessive force. The problem is not policing of low-level crime and trying to do what many places are now doing, including New York City, which is get rid of low-level crime and pretending that this is going to solve the problem. It's not going to solve the problem. It's going to make the problem a lot worse because a lot more people are going to think they can get away with crime. And number one way to avoid confrontations with the police is not to commit crimes in the first place.
Charles or Dr. Seacrest, if you'd like to respond. I'd like to say one thing to the entire panel, though. As we go forward, I want to make sure you understand that it's rather informal. I want to make sure everybody gets their point out, but as sometimes points are made over a period of time, I know it can be difficult to go back and respond to every point being made. So consider it like a conversation if you'd like to interject at any given point. But would either of you like to respond to what Ben had to say?
I would love to. Disagree with everything that you said, but here's why.
I can't believe it.
We've got to make certain that we find that balance. I'm with you. All crimes need to be enforced. We have officers there for a reason. We want to make certain that we are a law-abiding society. I agree with that part of it. No one in their right mind would ever say that if you see a crime being committed, just look the other way and pretend like it didn't exist. That goes without saying. But where I disagree with your argument is when you start to ask yourself, is this worth it? If you see someone who has a broken tail light and you see someone where you try to pursue, you have to think of what's the amount of force that I'm going to use in order to get this criminal. What's the threat to society? At some point, you've got to do that analysis of this human life. Is it worth taking this human life for someone who littered on the sidewalk?
I mean, I agree.
Someone who skipped out on transit fare.
I agree, but don't you think that it depends on the level of threat escalation? Meaning that if a cop pulls somebody over for a taillight, nobody in their right mind is going to say the cop should shoot the guy for a broken taillight. Right? I mean, nobody's saying that. But if you have a situation in which somebody's pulled over for a taillight and the person gets out of the car, confronts the cop, and goes for his gun, that's not the cop's fault for pulling the guy over for a broken taillight. It's the fault of the guy who went for the cop's gun.
Absolutely.
One moment. Sir, you are not the moderator. And one other point I'll make is I did put online, anybody can ask any question, and I will take a look at it and put it here. Plus, one moment, please. Plus, and both of our guests, Sir, I can't see you or really understand what you're saying, but I will tell you this. This is for a broadcast, so things have to be on the microphone, first of all. Secondly, both panelists, and you can verify this, I have offered them the chance, which I did not offer to the conservative panelists, to address any specific issue that you wanted ahead of time. I did make that offer, did I not? So please, let's wait to actually hear the debate, which is what people paid to see. So, Dr. Seacrest, I want to get your response to what Ben was saying, or Charles, either one.
Yeah. Okay. This is really, really difficult because I believe in history and I believe in all these kinds of things. I think that they can explain things. And one of the situations here, and quite clearly, when you're looking at the case, and I was absolutely opposed, really opposed to bringing out the fact that white cops are shooting black males. I was actually opposed to emphasizing that because I actually felt that precisely you would end up with this argument that Ben has presented, that actually black men are shooting black men more than white cops shoot black cops. And then that actually gives a short circuit to an answer that really demands a lot more attention and a lot more work. And I was actually, I read this and I was saying, no, this whole business, don't fall into this because you fall precisely into this trap. And then you end up saying like, yeah, it is true. It is quite true. But then there's white-on-white violence is equally as lethal. I mean, but that we've already lost the direction of the argument because now we're talking about white people shooting white people and black people shooting black people, and we're not talking about the issue as to what happens when somebody is jaywalking or somebody's dealing with a bus light ends up being policed in this manner, right? Now we're just talking about this other issue, which again, I mean, is kind of faulty. I'll admit it.
Charles, the two are intertwined, aren't they, though? I mean, in the sense that if the idea is that overzealous policing, that it has a cost and a benefit, right? Overzealous policing has a cost and a benefit. The cost is obviously to the people who are the victims of the overzealous policing.
Absolutely, no. You guys, you often talk about black incompetency, and I've always heard this. Oh, blacks, when you did affirmative action, you're going to have all these incompetent blacks all over the place. Now, Now, nobody ever talks about white policing as incompetent. And I'm telling you, a lot of this policing is bloody incompetent. I'm like, oh my God, were you trained? Did you ever go to school?
I don't think it's unique to white police
No,
officers.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that nobody ever talks about incompetence on policing as a problem. It becomes racialized, and nobody says this is incompetent policing, full stop.
Well,
I mean, nobody says this.
By the way,
and I hear this all the time, and everybody comes out, and nobody will come out and say, I don't care if he's black or white, that guy was incompetent. And he did not deserve that job. And you bring these people into a community, and we have to suffer incompetent police.
Well, actually, so
and then you come out and
Charles,
okay.
no, I totally know.
Let me interject. I can see Monique would like to interject.
No, it's all right. I mean, you talk about incompetent policing. Nobody talks about the fact that, yes, is there police profiling? Absolutely. But you know who started that was my great-grandmother in East LA, the darkest Mexican woman you could find. And did you know what she did? She invited Officer O'Reilly to her front porch of a dirt front yard that she swept every day and taught him what the red do-rag meant and what the blue do-rag meant. Officer O'Reilly had no idea. So has it evolved into competent policing? You know, I think it's more of a matter of the fact that, you know, unity in the community is what keeps our families together. As a Mexican-American female who's raised 4 sons, okay, 4 sons, and taught them all that the first time you're arrested, you're on your own, okay, because I have no tolerance for that. 0 tolerance for that. You're on your own. And I'll tell you what, my sons were never police profiled in the library, at mass, or at the church youth group. They were never police, you know, racially profiled there, and that was a true thing. But I have to tell you that the incompetence, is it there? Sure, it's there. But when you look at the Baltimore Police Department or the Baltimore mayor, they're black. Okay, so the incompetence does transcend the color of their skin, and it can transcend some of that incompetency. However, I would like to point out that the first officers that came into East Los Angeles to help my great-grandmother, they didn't know what a do-rag was. They didn't know what the creased khakis were or the word cholo was. We taught them that. When I say we, I mean the Mexican-American community, because we were scared, very scared of the drug dealers that would threaten us, that would wait outside mass and hit up the old ladies for money to protect them. So I have to say thank you to our policemen and women. And you know, I can't believe that an Officer O'Reilly, an Irish officer of the law, would even know that if we didn't invite them into our communities and say, we need help. And that's where we're at today.
Now,
during the Ferguson, I want to catch on that because I also have sons, but the difference is that my boys will be profiled when they're coming out of church. The difference is my children will be profiled when they're leaving or sitting inside of a library. Those are the types of instances that I'm fighting for. I want to make certain that someone who's got a big afro doesn't seem too radical, like she's going to commit some type of crime. I want to be able to change the look of someone who's walking down the street wearing a hoodie, that they don't become a suspect, that they're up to no good. I want to make certain that someone who listens to hip-hop, it doesn't take much to be able to profile someone. Oh, that person's one of them. It doesn't take us much to create those definitions. Unless we're able to do that.
I'm really glad
just
you
a
said
second.
that.
Let me interject a question
Sure.
here because there is a question about sons. Because Charles Medady wrote a column recently about sons. He wrote about Toya Graham, the mother who is now being hailed as Mother of the Year because she was smacking her son numerous times.
I've done that.
To herd him away from the rioters in Baltimore. And Charles, you wrote on the Stranger blog, quote, "I'm a father who worries about keeping my own black kids alive. The smacking is not an act of moral outrage, but an act of desperation. She rightly feels that her society places a very low value on men who look like her son. She does not want to end up like the parents of Freddie Gray or Michael Brown." With the scale of public outrage and acclaim for her actions, why do you believe society doesn't value those who look like her son?
You know,
just Charles directly because it's his call.
Okay, guys. All right, I have to say this really, I mean, I'm a pragmatist. I'm not kidding you. I really want to, I don't like emotional, you know what I mean? I really like to say, what are the facts telling you, right? Fear. What's that? Fear. Yeah, no. So basically in the 1970s, around 1972, basically you had a prison population in the USA of roughly, I think it was just under 100,000, right, with a population of 200 million people. And now you have a prison population in the USA of basically, in 40 years, you have a prison population that's around 2 million people. And a lot of those in prison are black, right? And so how in the world did it between 1925 and 1972, the prison population was pretty stable, right? And then suddenly it explodes in 1972, and we have a huge prison population today. Is this Darwinian selection? I mean, really, if you tell me Darwin works that fast, then yeah, let's talk about that. Well, you know, because maybe there's an issue like the finches here in the Galapagos Islands, right? You know, black kids are just like got crime that fast, and it exploded. I just want you to be really practical about this. And if you tell me that those figures are not strange, right, and do not speak of a fundamental shift in the society that is not to do with biology or race, meaning race in the sense of biology and genetics, then you have to come to conclude that there was a cultural shift here. You have to come to conclude this. And in that sense, you have to say that the people are being incarcerated in the society and policed in a way that is now that if you're not